The last thing I want to mention, we're going to go back. I call this last segment COVID as a plot, And I just want to tell you, the COVID I mentioned earlier, COVID-19 was used for the purpose of the left just used it as an opportunity to spread tyranny, to spread fear, to say we have to have mail-in ballots. The COVID was used to a great and large extent by the leftists in this country to bring their agenda, their more to do things that would make it more likely that Trump would get defeated, to get Biden elected, to get the American people scared. But there's a really deeper thing, and I haven't done a show on this yet, and I'm going to do it soon. But there is recognition at the World Economic Forum as one thing, this big concept called the Great Reset. The idea that the globalists in this world, who've always wanted to be in charge of everything, always wanted to have a one world government, always wanted to displace America as unique in all world history, as a country that stands for freedom of all people, that is a standard bearer for liberty, all the great things America is. The globalists have always wanted to undermine America in that role. Globalists very much want to have America diminished, weakened, and just kind of getting off the scene as the leader of the free world, or really the one recognized superpower in the world. So COVID was talked about, this great reset idea of just kind of resetting all the world and resetting the economy of the world, but resetting the whole world with the idea that the kind of globalist community, the radical leftist, socialist, Soros, communist types, could use COVID as a means to diminish America in a variety of ways. I want to just mention on the Great Reset, this most amazing thing happened. There is an author. This is a guy who is a leading elitist. He's a part of the World Economic Forum. He's written a book called The Great Reset. His name is Klaus, Klaus Schwab, Schwab. Klaus Schwab wrote The Great Reset. And what he's saying is that when in the future they study the world today, that people look back at the world now in 2020 and the coming decades, that we will begin changing the way we describe time. Back at the birth of Jesus, we had the whole reset of the Christian calendar, and we have the BC calendar is before Christ, and after Christ, the AD is after his death. I mean, the whole world calendar, at least for Christian nations, is based on the presence of Christ, of Jesus' birth. And so you have, BC before Christ, AD after death. That was how the whole human calendar was reset because of Christ. This guy is saying that the human calendar will again be reset, and it's again the same terms. It's BC before coronavirus and AC after coronavirus. That this will be the marker, the new change in time, because of all of the way the world will shift because of coronavirus. That we will make an entire shift of who has power in the world, of who has freedom in the world, and people, I know that there are many people still hung up on the idea that COVID is just a healthcare problem, and COVID is a problem that we're dealing with through masks, and we're waiting for a vaccine, and that's all they know. That's all they know. But the fact is, for informed people, like people listening to my show, you're aware that there are now thousands of doctors in America, thousands of doctors speaking up and saying, number one, COVID, yes, it's not good. It's a flu-like thing. It has 99+% survival rate. There's no reason that America should have shut down to start with. There's no reason. It is not the bubonic plague. The vast majority, nearly everybody survives. So number two, 99% survival rate. Number three, masks do nothing at all. Masks do not prevent the spread of COVID at all. We had Dr. Simone Gold on the show last Thursday, I think it was. Go back and listen to that interview. She's saying masks cannot prevent the spread of COVID at all. They do nothing. She's got great detail explaining that. She has a website, americasfrontlinedoctors.com, where she lays out why. She lays out scholarly papers explaining masks don't stop the spread of COVID. And we have, in this country, we have the suppression of very viable, actually efficacious, ongoing, used by doctors therapies to treat COVID, which include hydroxychloroquine, inhaled budesonide, you have oleandrin, there are remdesivir, however you say all these other, I don't know all the names of them, but the doctors who've been on my show over and over are pointing out we have therapies that are completely effective so people don't have to be sick with COVID. They can get over COVID, they can be cured. But you have the national, the ruling elite mindset in Washington coming out of NIH and Fauci saying that that we just must remain paralyzed with fear. We must remain shut down. We must remain masked. We can't have Thanksgiving. We can't have Christmas. We can't have anything until the magic vaccine comes along. And even then, says Fauci, even after the vaccine, everybody still has to wear masks and socially distance. So there are great, great pieces being written. One's on my website that is basically making the point. COVID, the name of the article, I can't urge you strong enough to read it. COVID-19 is the agenda. Biden is merely the delivery vehicle. One last quick clip. Here's Biden talking about what he's going to do if he possibly wins the presidency to deal with COVID.
Look, a pandemic doesn't play favorites, nor will I. As I said, no red states, no blue states, just the United States, united in our response, united in our purpose to stop the spread of COVID-19 and beat this virus. First, I'll go to every governor, urge them to mandate mask wearing in their states. And if they refuse, I'll go to the mayors and county executives and get local masking requirements in place nationwide. As president, I'll mandate mask wearing in all federal buildings and all interstate transportation because masks save lives.
Okay, people, he knows that isn't, well, I don't know what he knows. Leaders in the Democrat Party realize they don't work. Masks do nothing. We are being treated as subjects by leftists who see COVID as yet another opportunity to repress this freedom of spirit in the American people, to repress our spirit of self-reliance, to repress us, so we just simply decide we'll wait to be told whether or not grandma can come over for Thanksgiving, whether or not we're allowed to have our friends over on Christmas or any other time, because they'll decide for us based on COVID, and they can look you straight in the face and ignore all the evidence that COVID has a 99.9% survival rate for almost everyone, except if you are extremely aged or otherwise infirm or have a pre-existing condition. And the other thing that keeps coming out of NIH, Fauci, and those people, this ruling elite class, is just being told, ignore your doctor, ignore what you read, ignore all the studies, ignore what your own family doctor is telling you, ignore what thousands of experts are saying, that COVID is treatable. It's not serious. You can get COVID and recover easily within days by turning to available therapies that nobody's making any money off of. The patents are long elapsed on budesonide and on hydroxychloroquine. No one's making millions. Now they will on the vaccines, they'll make millions, but the therapies working now, no one's making any money. And so you have the ruling elite class telling you to ignore those things, but to expect you're going to be living under mandates in your state for as far as the eye can see because of COVID, that almost everyone survives, that has effective treatments, and yet you're told you're going to surrender your freedom. And I'm going to ask you, if you're one of the people who still extremely wants the mandates and wants the shutdowns and wants the mask mandates, how long will you put up with that? Because this isn't a particularly serious virus. It doesn't mean, yes, people have died, and I'm very sorry people died of anything, including COVID. And they often died of COVID in our early treating of it because we didn't know these treatments worked. And because people like Fauci lied to the American people and told them not to turn to these treatments that work. And because people like Fauci insisted that you stay home and just tough it out until you're practically dying, and then you go to the hospital, and then they stick you on a ventilator, which end up being the cause of death for many of the people who died. And people, it's one thing to say you personally are fearful and you just can't stand the idea of getting the flu or a cold or COVID or anything, and you want to be protective of yourself, then you should be. You live in a free country. You should stay home, or you should go out and wear a mask and avoid other people, or you should not go to big events. You can make those decisions. That's what freedom is. But what they're talking about in this country, what Biden will bring if he ever were to be elected, which he wasn't, but if he were to be elected, what they're talking about is using COVID to end the concept of personal freedom in this country. Because just imagine, because they're talking already about, you probably have to have a proof of a negative test before you're allowed to go get on the airplane or go to a restaurant or go anywhere where crowds are or go to a concert or go to all sorts of other places or use Uber or use anything. There is massive preparation being done now to find many, many ways in which your freedom will be restricted if you can't prove a negative test, and then eventually it'll be you can't prove that you didn't take this vaccine. People, this is being used to take away America's freedom. And just ask yourself, if you're one of the ones who's still wondering what's really true about COVID, how long will you do this? For the rest of your life? Would you agree that the rest of your life you'll just stay home? Or you'll wait to be told if you're allowed to go outside? Or if you can go outside, how many people you can have with you and how close you can stand to each other, and whether a restaurant that wants to be open, it can be open, whether you're allowed to go to the restaurant, whether you're allowed to run your business, because there might be some other virus that's actually worse and really dangerous, far worse than COVID. And then we have been conditioned by this virus to say, well, now it's a new one. Well, my gosh, now everybody stay home like forever. Ask yourself, and is your life worth living if you can never leave your home, but as long as you stay home in your mask and goggles and, I don't know, spacesuit, but you're alive, is that life to you? Is that okay with you? Because it's not. And this is, I just want you to begin to, if you haven't done it yet, open your mind to the idea that COVID is a disease, it's unpleasant, we don't want people to get it, we want to have therapies available, but it's being used by the people in power internationally, as you hear from the globalist guy Klaus Schwab talking about how we're going to change the international calendar of years. We're going to start over at zero, pre-COVID and post-COVID, or pre-coronavirus, post-coronavirus, over some of the 99% survival rate, because he sees the ability of the globalist, totalitarian, Marxist agenda to have the world under the control of them. He sees that as forwarded by, as helped along by instilling fear of COVID and instilling rules related to COVID, instilling rules about when you can go places and where you can go and who you're allowed to be with and what tests you have to have and what vaccine you have to have. And you have to understand the NIH type people, Fauci, Biden and the Democrat Party of this country, they're right with these people. You can't find one Democrat in this country saying, wait a minute, I think we're overreacting to COVID. I think maybe people should be allowed to be free. I think we can't mandate everything they do every day. You can't find one Democrat in this country because they're in that globalist mindset. They're fine with it. And if they're not, if you think they're not, ask them to speak up, because there are more conservatives speaking up. Even Justice Alito of the Supreme Court spoke up and said, I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but to the effect that it's dangerous how we are surrendering liberty because of coronavirus, especially given that it is a largely survivable, not serious disease, and yet we're willing to surrender pretty much all the freedom in America. and do it and salute to whatever the government says. We are surrendering our commitment to personal liberty, the right to live in freedom, to COVID. If you want to take the steps the government wants you to take, fine. But living under a government that is using COVID to take away your freedom, to manipulate your future freedom, people, it is time to fight. It's time to say no.